Welcome, my name is Matt Wilson, and thank you for listening to the Table Talk series on the Fire Dog Podcast. The Table Talk series is a free-flowing conversation between friends and peers on topics like reading, leadership, successes, failures, fireground tactics, and much more. It's the kind of conversations you'd have around the kitchen table at your firehouse. These are the conversations we have all the time, and at the Fire Dog Podcast, we thought it was a good idea to record and share some of them. Today, Chris Boykley and I dive into the risk-reward threshold. When should you risk a lot to save a lot, and when should you risk a little to save a little? The answer might vary depending on who you ask, and in some situations, different firefighters make different calls. One thing is certain: preparation, training, discipline are key. In high risk, high reward scenarios, you'll only be as successful as your training allows. You'll fall back to your minimum level of preparation. In this episode, Chris and I explore that risk reward line and why your training and preparation are so crucial. Chris also shares a real life story about a firefighter in Indianapolis who pushed the limit and made a successful rescue. Take a listen and try to imagine what you would have done in a similar situation. Are you ready for a similar challenge? After you've listened, join us on the Fire Dog Mentorship Facebook group or visit any of our social media pages to continue the conversation.
All right. So in this episode of Table Talk, Matt and I wanted to kind of dig into this whole idea of risk a lot to save a lot. That's something we all, learn early on in the fire academy. This idea that, we're going to risk a lot if the stakes are high and there's a lot to be saved. And I want to kind of kick this off by reading an excerpt from a fire that has made me think a lot about that concept and a lot about this job in general and the commitment that each of us has made as firefighters. There aren't enough adjectives to adequately describe the events that surrounded the run on 31 Bankers Lane on Saturday, November 23rd, 2019. For this group of firefighters, multiple obstacles creating confusion and chaos awaited them as they began to arrive on scene. While en route, Fire Control relayed that PD was on scene reporting confirmed entrapment. The police department had received the initial call as a domestic and discovered an apartment fire when they got there. Engine and Ladder 20 arrived first, reporting heavy smoke showing from 2 floors, zero access for apparatus to the front of the building, and hydrant placement that made getting water challenging. Engine 20 established first water, with Engine 25 getting a secondary supply line upon their arrival. Crews were faced with extensive layouts and the need for yard lays, which would allow them to stretch their attack lines to the second and third floors. While this was going on, Ladder 20 began the process of ground ladder deployment to the front of the structure, rescuing a person trapped on the third floor. Another crew member attempted to vent and or search a third floor window, but was pushed back by intense heat. Crews from Engine 27, the third engine on scene, worked to extinguish fire from the exterior of the C side as crews from Engine 20 and 25 began to stretch attack lines to the second and third floors. During this time, Squad 10 arrived. They entered the west side of the building and made their way to the second floor. While awaiting water in a heavily charged second floor stairwell, Adam Godey and his officer were at the ready, anxious to get to the third floor where a woman was reportedly trapped. The heat was intense. Face shields of those on the line in the hallway were compromised and starting to degrade. A quick blast of water in the stairwell from Engine 20's nozzleman allowed Adam Godey of Squad 10 to bolt past the nozzle and head to the third floor, which he discovered was as heavily involved in fire as the second. Adam retreated back downstairs, quickly regained his composure, and told himself to go back. Risk a lot to save a lot. Back to the third floor, Adam entered the apartment. The door frame was on fire. Everything in the front room was on fire. The heat was intense. Adam was low and crawling as fast as he possibly could. The sudden realization that he could feel his skin burning underneath his turnout coat grounded him in the reality of his current situation, but forced the narrative in Adam's head to push him even further. Adam said, "I knew I was burning, but if I could crawl fast and do a quick search, I knew I had a chance of finding her." Due to the free burning fire in the front room, visibility was good, and Adam could see the woman was not in there. Heading towards the rear, Adam entered a bedroom chock full of black smoke with zero visibility. He felt a bed and got on top of it to search, He found nothing. Simultaneously, crews maintained aggressive efforts throughout the building, extinguishing fire as searches continued. By the time Adam hit the bedroom, his face mask was completely compromised and he couldn't see a thing. Suddenly, he felt water. An engine crew had a hand line at the window of the bedroom. Another firefighter tried to enter through the window, but sustained burns to his face as soon as he stuck his head in. He retreated and maintained an exterior position at the window. Adam yelled to keep throwing water. It was hot, he was burning, and he needed to buy a little more time. Knowing that he was able to make verbal contact with firefighters nearby allowed Adam to maintain his focus and provided a compass for rapid egress if he needed it. He said it reassured him that he knew where he was and that they had his back. Adam made his way down the hall and found a locked door he hoped was another bedroom. Still on hands and knees, working under blind conditions, Adam used his Halligan tool to breach the door. It was a bathroom. He entered, searched, and within seconds found an unconscious woman in the bathtub. Unable to radio for help, Adam pulled the woman out of the tub towards the bedroom and yelled for assistance. At the window, 2 firefighters entered the bedroom and assisted Adam in getting her up off the floor and out onto the ground ladder. Adam says the entire effort from this initial entry from the stairwell, waiting for water, to bringing the woman to the window was about 4 minutes. Despite all the reasons to slow down, wait for assistance, or retreat and wait for water, Adam never once thought of giving up. He felt compelled to keep searching. The woman was transported in critical condition to a local hospital and thankfully survived her near-fatal experience. She has made a full recovery.
Man, that's an incredible story. It's a great story. And I guess in spirit of, the risk a lot, save a lot conversation, I guess it's hard to discern where the line is. And in his case, Adam's case, he kind of decided for himself. But this could have also went terribly wrong for him, potentially. But incredible story.
Man, this is one. So I tell this story at every class of the DoD Firefighter Rescue and Survival School.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, all week we prime the students with NIOSH reports for every single skill and drill that they're completing. And so I tell this story, and every single student thinks I'm teeing up another line of duty death. And it very well could have been.
Sure.
I think about this fire.
Had they not been on that window in the bedroom, had visibility not been what it was, he could have easily, and the fact that his face mask was compromising or compromised almost completely, he was probably minutes away, or no water. Without water, he'd be within very few minutes, dead himself. But yeah, this is like the beginnings of this, or the beginnings of the story. Yeah, like you mentioned, it could have very easily been a line of duty death.
I think of all the things that were not textbook. Right? Bolting past the hand line or pushing through a room on fire, right? Numerous things that would violate NFPA standards, AFIs, SOPs.
Sure.
And there's a lady alive because of it.
Sure. I wonder, do you know if anything changed as a result, or was there any kind of, I guess, anything, I don't want to say disciplinary. You had mentioned that he received the Medal of Valor, and I don't know if you mentioned that in this recording, but I know you texted me that. I wonder if anything came of this.
Yeah. Man, not that I know of. It was a controversial thing.
Sure.
Right. Where, Adam got a lot of credit for doing what he did, and he got a lot of criticism for it at the same time.
Right.
And, largely, people in support of it, right? It worked out well. But it could have not worked out too. Right. And I picture that NIOSH report with all the contributing factors that would have aired out um, you know, all the little issues, all the little things that weren't textbook,
Sure.
if it had gone the other way.
Sure.
And that's what's made me think about this whole concept of risk a lot to save a lot.
Yeah. And again,
Where
that where's the line for that? Where's the threshold? And how do you know? How do you know when to push forward and when to not? And I don't think that training can necessarily teach for that.
I would
Um,
agree with that. That maybe I don't even know that there's a right answer, right? Like you've got an apartment just chugging with heavy black smoke. Is it a go or a no go?
right.
Right? Or now police are reporting confirmed entrapment. Does that make it go or no go?
Right.
There's no water. Is it a go or a no go?
Right.
You feel your skin actively burning underneath your turnout coat. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer to any of those things, but to me now, that's what risk a lot to save a lot looks like. Deciding, trying to put yourself in those positions mentally and deciding where the line is for you.
Hmm. It's a tough place as a leader. Let's say as a battalion chief, or even a company officer, because you can't be expected to tell someone else to go do what he did, because he, I would assume, has permanent disability of some kind, or at the very least some scars from burning his skin. I don't know if that's true or not. So that's another, just from the leadership perspective, you can't be expected to tell somebody to go do what he did. I think it's, no matter where you are, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a decision that's up to the individual.
Yep, I would totally agree with that. I think there's a certain um, responsibility that we all have as a minimum standard to risk a lot to save a lot, right? The fire protection badge that we all wear says that we've committed to hang it out there if other lives are on the line.
Sure.
You know, what decisions you make under those conditions, that's a soul searching type thing.
Yeah, I wonder, arguments made against what he did. I guess how imminent was the availability of water at the top of the stairs, right? Um, could and you could play Monday morning quarterback all day, but had he waited a little while longer, how long before water, and how long before it was acceptable, quote unquote, to make a push, and how protected was this person in the bathroom with the door closed? I think you probably could make arguments in favor of those points.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
but you can only make the best decision. It's hard to criticize the person, the man in the arena, for lack of a better term, right? Like with seconds to spare, and all of those unknowns. I guess I'm reluctant to be a critic of that, of the decisions that he made, and obviously it worked out for him and the person that he saved.
Yeah. He talks about um, how his decision making, how clear it was, where he knew water was coming. He knew, due to the construction of the building, it was a block building. He knew he had time that it wasn't going to collapse,
Mm,
and he knew that that was the apartment. He said there was no doubt in his mind that there was somebody trapped in that apartment.
hmm,
The combination of those three things made the decision.
mm. So it was an informed decision, I guess, to your point. It
Yeah.
wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It was an informed decision.
Yeah.
He considered the construction. He considered the fact that somebody was known missing. He may have even considered the fact that that there were resources on the Charlie side. I don't know if that was mentioned, but I have resources here. I have a secondary means of egress. Yeah, so there was a bit of a, there's an algorithm that he used, and It wasn't just cowboy stuff, right?
Right.
As we like to
Yep.
call it.
Yep.
So I
And
guess that's a great point to enforce, though, to listeners who may be, you know, thinking that they can go do whatever they want, but there is a calculus. There was a calculus to his decision making process.
yep. I'll add that. So I get to work with Adam every third day. He's on the squad in our firehouse, and he's the best I've ever seen because of his preparation. By no means was this save any kind of kamikaze mission. This is a guy that obsesses over the fundamentals, that obsesses over um, the job in general. And he gets to people. I want to say he's gotten to people in burning buildings every year since then. There might be 1 year in there since 2019 that he hasn't. Um, and it's because he's fast, he's smart, and he's aggressive. The combination of all three things that he prepares for every single shift. And I think of all the firefighters that, there are plenty of firefighters that are missing one of those things, some that are missing two or maybe all three of those things. But if he was fast and smart, but not aggressive, not willing to take the heat and make that kind of push, that lady dies every single time. And maybe if he's fast and he's aggressive, but he's not smart, if he didn't have the ability to size up the building and to know where to go and to understand the construction all in a split second, that lady dies every single time. And maybe he's fast and he's aggressive. I'm sorry, maybe he's smart and he's aggressive, but he's not very fast. It takes him 60 seconds to mask up instead of 20. That lady dies every single time. And so, for our listeners, the episode we just finished up with Chief Hovelman, I believe it's episode 50. He talked a lot about adapting and acting and the preparation that goes into having that ability, having the ability to perform at that level. I feel like most firefighters have the will to perform at that level, but not near as many have the will to prepare to perform at that level.
Absolutely. Yeah, to your point, there's so much that went into him being ready for that moment that only he knows about, right? And so how prepared are you for a similar moment, I guess is the point, right? How prepared are all of us for that similar moment? And only you can answer that question. But this isn't a guy who hangs out in the recliner every shift. This is a guy who takes every opportunity to be the best possible firefighter that he can be. And had he not done that up to that point, this could have very well been a line of duty death report. And at the very least, he wouldn't have saved anybody's life. So, yeah, it's a
Now,
great story.
to his face, of course, he's the worst fireman I've ever seen. So I'll deny any of this to my death
Make sure he
if he
doesn't
hears
listen
us
to
said
it.
it. But
Make sure he doesn't
but
listen to it.
yeah, but what an aspiration for any firefighter, right? To be those three things, and to be honest with yourself, right? If you're the firefighter that takes 60 seconds to mask up instead of 20, which is a perfectly achievable goal, work on it, right? Find any weakness that you have in those three things, whether it's your speed, it's your aggressiveness, or it's your smarts on the fire ground,
Knowledge. Yeah.
your knowledge, and work with it. Work on it every single shift.
Mm. Yeah, and how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so establishing, I mean, we could go deep into this conversation, but establishing good habits, being disciplined, and how you approach each day, both personally and professionally. I like to use the example of getting up, going to bed at a decent time and getting up at a decent time so that you have an opportunity to do some kind of physical exercise, or habits like that, believe it or not, translate into your ability to prepare. And so So yeah, that's a great point to the story is, being a disciplined and prepared practitioner.
Yeah, it's a habit, not an act, right? It's a career long journey of being prepared to do whatever needs done, no matter what it might be. And maybe that's another conversation you might have to have with yourself. Maybe you were that firefighter when you first started, but now you're 15 or 20 years into a career. Are you still on that journey?
Sure.
Are you
Yeah,
still doing everything possible?
we all have to look at ourselves in the mirror because yeah, it is a cyclical thing, or you have bad days and bad years, or things that's why discipline is so important. And I like I've heard it said before, but motivation is nothing because motivation is fleeting, but discipline is everything because it establishes those norms for you. Um, and so, how do you find discipline in your life so that you can make it through those down days, those bad days? Right? You have to establish habits that become normal for you and not as daunting, I guess. Like I use physical exercise. It's just such a foundational thing to so many different things. But for me personally, just about, I mean, I've had surgeries, right, where I've had to be down, and there's, I've been injured, of course, but since, and I kind of went on this journey in about 2018 as a result of reading a book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which I wouldn't go to the extremes that he goes to, but I'm sure some are familiar with that book. But, and through other books too, and through other people that influenced me, but I've decided that that's going to be normal for me. And it was tough. There's tough mornings, of course, and there's still tough mornings, but it's just it's so ingrained within my mentality that it's just like not even an option not to do it, right? And so I guess you have to find that for yourself, both personally and again professionally. It's not an option not to be thorough in your truck checkout. It's not an option to be under 30-second, I don't know, masking up or getting all your gear on. It's not an option to not know how to force a door within so many seconds. It's not an option to know how to get water out of the truck within so many seconds of pulling the brake, right? So I think if you can, find that within yourself, whatever that means in your respective job position, you have to find that and make it normal.
Yeah, I love the visual of discipline, like you're describing, being a muscle. I
Yeah, there you go.
wholeheartedly
It's a
believe
great
that
way to describe it.
that your discipline gets stronger the more you exercise it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really solidifies. And again, you're going to have hard days and hard weeks and hard months and maybe hard years. And things are going to happen in your life. It's inevitable. It happened to all of us. But man, the more that muscle is exercised, the more you are equipped to weather the storms. It, you know, so yeah, great conversation.
Yeah. Yep. So, man, I encourage our listeners to. I think there's power in even putting yourself through this kind of thought exercise of one, what does risk a lot to save a lot look like for you, and maybe two, are there any weak spots in your game? Right? Are there any things you can do to just tighten up your discipline or tighten up, you know, your physical ability, your skills and abilities in any areas, and just start doing it gradually? That's what discipline looks like. It's not this one giant like life event and now you're disciplined. It's all these gradual tightening up to become who you want to be, the firefighter that you envision coming for your family on your worst day. Have that put yourself through that thought exercise and just pick one thing to improve through discipline or through training, and then move on to the next one. It's such a powerful thing over time.
Absolutely. So important. Chris, again, man, good story, good points. I appreciate you, I guess, bringing this up and us recording it, getting us to record it.
For sure.
All right. Till next time, stay safe.
All right, brother.
See ya. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fire Dog Podcast. You can find more episodes like this on our website, firedog.us, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also active on social media. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at the Fire Dog Podcast. That is the Fire DAWG Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow to stay plugged into every new episode. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share this podcast with your friends and coworkers, either on social media or right there within your firehouse. This is Matt Wilson with Chris Boykley. Until next time, stay safe.